She introduced me to her boss as her roommate at the Christmas party. I didn't correct her. I smiled, shook his hand, let the room laugh, and let her keep her little joke for her work friends. Then I went home and packed. Anyway, I'm Mike, and this is how I stopped being my wife's roommate. I'm 34, born and raised just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I'm a mechanic, not the sexy kind in commercials leaning on a sports car. The real kind, grease under the nails that never fully goes away, knees that hurt from years of concrete, a garage that smells like burnt oil, rubber, and cheap coffee. I like my work, I like the honesty of it. An engine's broken, you fix it. No branding, no messaging, no pretending a check engine light is actually a sign of growth. Jessica lives in that world. PR and marketing for a mid-sized tech company downtown. She can talk for 20 minutes without saying anything that can get pinned down. Sometimes I'd listen just for the sport of trying to find a concrete noun. When we met, she said she liked that about me, that I was solid, simple in the good way, grounded. That's the word she used. Grounded, she told her friend the night we met, thinking I couldn't hear over the bar noise. He works with his hands, it's nice. Nobody I know knows how to fix anything. Back then my grease-stained hands were cute, evidence that I was real. It didn't stay cute. We'd been married just under 4 years when the Christmas party happened, together for 6 and change. The drift didn't show up as some big explosion. It seeped in quietly, like water under a door you thought was sealed. Normal life before the cracks looked like this. Most weekdays, my alarm went off at 6:30. I'd roll out of bed, careful not to wake her if she'd been up late on calls with LA, or whatever coast she blamed her late-night Zooms on. Coffee, 2 fried eggs, toast with too much butter. I'd pack lunch if I remembered, usually leftovers in a Tupperware whose lid never quite matched. Jessica's mornings, on the rare days she wasn't rushing, were oat milk lattes in some tall glass that had to be hand-washed, yogurt with fruit artfully arranged, and her phone propped up on the counter while she answered Slack messages in a bathrobe. She liked nice things, an apartment in a newer building with a gym and a rooftop, brunch places that charge $20 for avocado on bread, cocktail bars where the menus look like novels. I'm not knocking it. I went along. I make decent money. I'm a lead tech at a busy shop and I pick up weekend work out of my own garage. Cars are paying, people always need them. But even early on, there were these little moments. The first one I really clocked was about a year into the marriage. Her company was throwing some launch event for a new app. She wanted me there. Spouses and partners welcome, the invite said. Business casual, she reminded me 3 times that week. I pulled on my cleanest dark jeans, a button-up shirt that actually saw an iron, and shoes without steel toes. I even scrubbed at my hands harder than usual, though the faint gray in the cuticles never really leaves. She looked me over when I came out of the bedroom. "You couldn't wear slacks?" she asked. I glanced down. "These are the good jeans." She sighed. "It's fine, just try not to talk about transmissions at the table, okay? My boss is going to be there. He's more creative class." "Got it," I said. "No transmissions, only metaphors." She rolled her eyes, but she smiled. Back then it was still mostly a joke. Mostly. At the event I noticed it for the first time. The way her voice changed around her coworkers. Brighter, a little higher, a little more performative. She introduced me as my husband, Mike. But there was this tiny pause before the word, like she had to decide if she wanted to use it. I shook a lot of soft hands that night. I listened to people talk about leveraging synergies and owning the conversation and authentic engagement. I nodded. I thought about how, in my world, engagement means your lug nuts are actually on. We went home. We had a small argument about her drinking too much Prosecco and me looking bored. Then we forgot it. Normal. A year later, the PR world introduced me to a new problem, Brad. I heard about him long before I met him. He was good at crisis comms, hilarious, brilliant with clients. But the title he wore most often in my house was work husband. It started as a joke. One night she tossed her purse on the counter and sighed. "Thank God for Brad," she said, kicking off her heels. "He's my work husband at this point. Couldn't survive that place without him." I was rinsing dishes. "Work husband, huh?" She waved a hand. "You know, office banter. He covers for me in meetings, I cover for him. It's like being married but with better boundaries." I didn't love the phrase, but I'm not the jealous type by default. I've seen real cheating in my line of work. Guys bring their side chicks to pick up the car, that kind of thing. This didn't look like that at first glance. It looked like a woman venting about a coworker. "Sounds like a good teammate," I said. "He is." She smiled down at her phone and started typing something fast, thumbs moving, expression soft. That was the first night I noticed how late work followed us home. At first it made sense. She's in PR, clients email at weird hours. But patterns interest me, in engines and in people. You start to see what's normal, what's not. It became normal that at 10, 11 at night, her phone would light up on the couch with a message from Brad work. It became normal that she'd roll slightly away from me, shoulders hunched, to type back. It became normal that she'd laugh quietly at something she read and not share it. One Tuesday around 11:30, she was in bed with the covers pulled up, phone glowing against her face in the dark. I was half asleep, that heavy, mechanic sleep where your back finally quits arguing. Another buzz, another, a little burst of laughter from her side. "You guys on a deadline," I mumbled. "Huh?" The screen went dark instantly. She set the phone face down on the nightstand. "Sorry, did I wake you?" "Not really, just asking." "It's just Brad being Brad," she said. "He's freaking out about a client deck tomorrow. Go back to sleep." I did, but I also put a tiny, mental tick mark next to Brad. Little things piled. Her comments about my work shifted too. I'd come home with black smudges on my forearm. She used to grab my wrist and say, "You're such a stereotype," and kiss the dirt. Then it turned into, "Can you wash your hands before you touch the couch? This fabric's expensive." We'd be getting dressed to go to dinner with her friends, and she'd say, "Babe, that shirt is kind of garage-y. Didn't you say you were going to buy a blazer?" "Did I?" I'd ask. "I told you 2 weeks ago we had this dinner." "You knew," she answered, like I'd broken an agreement we actually never made. The first clear boundary moment came after a Friday happy hour with her team. She insisted I come. "Everyone's bringing their person," she said. "Plus, you never come downtown with me." So I cleaned up. I pulled on the one pair of chinos in my closet, a dark sweater, boots that weren't work boots. I even got a manicure that morning while my oil changes were slow. It felt stupid, sitting in a chair while someone scraped at my cuticles, but I figured maybe it would make her relax about my hands for one night. The bar was all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, names like Juniper Smash and Smoke and Mirrors on the menu. I stuck to beer. When we walked in, she inhaled. Her world. You could see her put on this invisible jacket of confidence. "There they are," she said, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward a cluster of people by the wall. That's when I met Brad. He was about my height, thinner, hair styled in that tousled on-purpose way, rolled-up sleeves, a watch that probably cost more than my tool chest. His handshake was firm enough, but his eyes did that quick flick up and down over me. "So this is the famous Mike," he said, "the mechanic." "Yeah," I said, "somebody's gotta keep your Uber running." He laughed, "Fair point, man." The group laughed a little too hard. I smiled. I meant it as a joke, but I also meant it. As the night went on, I watched him and Jessica orbit each other. Inside jokes, bumps of shoulders, shared eye rolls about coworkers. It looked too easy, a little too familiar. At one point, she was at the bar ordering another round. I saw him slide closer to her, leaning in to speak directly into her ear even though the music wasn't that loud. His hand brushed her lower back briefly, like he'd done it 100 times. She didn't move away. She just laughed and tapped his chest with the back of her hand. I felt a heat rise in my chest, not jealousy exactly, just that sense when something lands outside the lines you thought were agreed on. In the Uber home, she was tipsy and chatty. "Brad's funny," she said, pulling off her heels and dropping them on the floor. "He was trying to get me to stay for karaoke. I told him my actual husband would murder him." "Your actual husband saw his hand on your back," I said calmly. She blinked. "What?" "At the bar. He put his hand on your back. You didn't say anything." She waved a hand. "Oh my God, you're not serious. That was nothing. We're all like that. It's just drunk touching, not a big deal." "It's a big deal to me," I said. "I'm not accusing you of cheating. I'm telling you what doesn't work for me." "You're being dramatic," she muttered, looking out the window. "I work there. You don't understand the vibe." "Maybe I don't," I said. "But my boundary is simple. I don't want other guys putting their hands on you like that, and if they do, I expect you to shut it down." She exhaled loudly. "We'll talk about this when you're less, whatever this is." "I'm sober," I said. "And clear, that's the line for me. Call it whatever word you want, but that's it." She didn't answer. The silence sat between us all the way home. That was the first time I said boundary out loud in our relationship. It didn't go over great. For a week she was cooler with me. Less physical affection, more nights saying she was exhausted and going to bed early with her phone. But she also cooked twice, brought home my favorite Chinese one night and left a little post-it on the fridge saying, "Sorry for snapping. Long week. Love you." I took that as an attempt. Maybe we could recalibrate. Then the next phase started. Open disrespect dressed up as jokes. We were getting ready for a charity gala her company put on every December. A fancy event at a hotel ballroom, black tie optional, but for her team, that meant try to look like an Instagram ad. 2 weeks before, she dropped a garment bag on the bed. "What's that?" I asked. "Your suit," she said. "I made an appointment for you at that place near the mall. They put this together for you, my treat." I unzipped it. A slim-cut navy suit, crisp white shirt, dark tie. Nice. Nicer than anything I owned. "You didn't have to do this," I said. "I did," she countered with a bright smile that didn't quite hit her eyes. "You can't wear whatever you were going to wear, not for this. My boss will be there. The CEO, press. It's a big deal." "Are you worried I'm going to embarrass you?" I asked. She laughed. "Don't be sensitive. I just want you to feel confident." "Clothes don't make me confident," I said, "but I appreciate the gift." "Just trust me," she said, "and maybe get a haircut. That lady at Fantastic Sam's is not it." "I like Carla," I said. "She's been cutting my hair since I was 12. "Exactly," she said under her breath. "That's the issue." I let that one go. Pick your battles. Around the same time, the late-night texting with Brad ramped up. It wasn't just occasional buzzes anymore. It was whole stretches of conversation. The little preview lines that pop up on the lock screen told enough of the story. Once when she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the counter where she'd left it. I didn't go looking. It was just there, buzzing against the granite. "Can't believe he still won't move closer to downtown. You deserve a loft with big windows, smirking face," from Brad. Then another. "You're basically a single girl anyway, law." The message preview cut off there. I didn't see her response. I didn't pick the phone up. I just stood there looking at the words, feeling something slow and heavy settle in my stomach. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, hair wet, she saw my face before she saw what I was looking at. "What?" she said, guarded. "Your work husband has opinions," I said, nodding toward the phone. She snatched it up, face flushing. The screen locked. "Don't read my messages," she snapped. I didn't have to read much, I said. The lock screen gave me the highlights. You're totally invading my privacy. It was vibrating non-stop on the counter, I replied evenly. You're in a towel. I didn't go into your soul, but since we're here, am I basically a roommate or a single girl's accessory? She inhaled. You're taking a joke out of context. Try me, I said. Give me the context where you're basically a single girl lands as respectful to our marriage. She rolled her eyes and walked past me toward the bedroom. It's just office banter, Mike. If I showed you everything we say, you'd have a heart attack. It's meaningless. Words mean things, I said, following her, even especially when you think nobody's listening. She grabbed pajamas from the drawer with sharper movements than necessary. Brad knows more about my day-to-day life than you do sometimes. That's the joke. We're always together, so he says I'm basically single because you're never around. That's it. I'm never around because I work, I said. So you can have this apartment and the marble counters your phone is buzzing on. Don't make this about money, she fired back. That's gross. It's about respect, I said. I'm not telling you can't have friends at work. I'm telling you I'm not okay with being downgraded to roommate status in someone else's mind, and apparently in yours too if you're not correcting it. She stared at me, jaw set. You're overreacting, you're insecure, it's not a good look. Insecure is thinking I have to control other people, I said. I'm not trying to do that. I'm telling you what I will and won't participate in. Different thing. Are you going to forbid me from texting male coworkers now? She demanded. I'm not forbidding anything, I said. I'm setting a line. If you want to act single, act single. Just don't do it while you're cashing in on being married. Wow, she said quietly. You really think that's what I'm doing? I think you like having two lives, I said. The one where you're the fun, flirty PR girl with the work husband, and the one where there's a guy at home paying the bills and unclogging the drains. That's cake and eat it. Everyone flirts, she muttered, turning away. It's harmless. That's the first sign, I said, mostly to myself, when disrespect is rebranded as harmless. She threw herself into bed, back to me. The phone stayed on the nightstand, screen down. We didn't resolve it that night, or the next. The week before the gala, my friend Ray had a barbecue. He's a service advisor at my shop, married to Jenna, a nurse with 2 kids. Simple, solid people. Their backyard is one of my favorite places. String lights, a beat-up grill, kids' toys scattered near the fence. No one cares if there's grease on my hands there. They expect it. Jessica used to love those nights too. Lately, she came less. Too tired, too busy, too peopled out. But this time, she said yes. I think she sensed things were off and decided some normal couple behavior couldn't hurt. We showed up with a 6-pack and a salad Jessica bought on the way, pretending she made it. Jenna hugged her, flour on her arms from whatever she'd been baking. On the deck, Ray flipped burgers while I handed him another beer. You two okay? He asked quietly while the women were inside. I flicked my eyes toward the sliding door. What do you mean? He shrugged. She's been different, man. Jenna said she seemed kind of checked out last time they talked, and you've been quieter than usual. I took a sip of beer. She's embarrassed of my job now, that's new. That's stupid, Ray said. Half this suburb runs because you keep their junkers alive. Apparently, that doesn't play well with her people. You talked to her about it. Yeah, she says I'm being dramatic. Ray shook his head. You're one of the least dramatic dudes I know. Don't tell Jessica that, I said dry. She's building a case. He bumped my shoulder with his. You know what you're worth. Don't let somebody gaslight you out of that. Inside, I could see Jessica through the glass, laughing at something on her phone while Jenna stirred something on the stove. That laughing into the screen expression again. I didn't have to guess whose name was at the top of that thread. We ate at the patio table. Kids ran around. Conversation was normal stuff: school, football, a weird noise someone's minivan was making. When Jessica and I got in the truck to go home, she made a face. "They're comfortable," she said. "Comfortable's bad?" I asked, backing out of the driveway. "Not bad, just small. Like this is it for them. Backyard barbecues and PTA, and the big excitement is a weekend at a cabin." "Some people like cabins," I said. "Do you?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I wouldn't mind one," I said. "Quiet lake, no Slack notifications." She laughed a little, but there was a disconnect there. A gap you could feel but not quite name yet. "If that's what you want, that's fine," she said after a beat. "It's just not me." "What are you?" I asked. She stared out the window. "I don't know yet, but I know it's more than that." We drove the rest of the way in silence. Funny thing is, I did have access to a cabin. My uncle left one to me when he passed, an old fishing place up by a lake about an hour and a half away. It sat mostly unused, except for the occasional guy's weekend. In that moment I thought briefly I could live like that. Then I pictured Jessica in her heels trying to navigate the gravel driveway and laughed to myself. If I'd known where it was headed, I would have driven up there that night and saved myself the last sliver of hope. The night before the gala, the tension finally boiled over into something clear. We were both home early for once. She was steaming her dress, some emerald green thing that dipped a little too low for my taste, but I kept that to myself. I was trying on the suit she'd bought, wrestling with the tie in the mirror. She stood in the doorway, watching me. "Let me do it," she said finally, stepping closer and taking the tie from my hands. Her fingers moved efficiently under my collar. It was a domestic scene that would have been sweet a year earlier. Now it felt like a costume fitting. "You look good," she said, smoothing the lapels. "Almost like I belong in your world," I said lightly. She hesitated. "Just one thing tonight." "Here we go," I said. "Hit me." "Can you not talk too much shop?" she asked. "Like, if someone asks what you do, obviously answer, but maybe don't go into the whole engine autopsy monologue. Some of these people they just don't get it." "Do you get it?" I asked, meeting her eyes in the mirror. She looked away. "I do, but there's a time and place." "I'm not ashamed of what I do," I said. "If you are, that's a different conversation." "I'm not ashamed," she said quickly. "I just know this crowd. They're snobs. I'm trying to protect you from them, not the other way around." "Protect me," I repeated, "by minimizing me before they even have a chance." "That's not what I'm doing." "It's what it sounds like," I replied. "And while we're on it, I have a request too." She crossed her arms. "Okay. You keep telling your coworkers I'm basically your roommate. It comes up in your little joke texts. That stops. Tonight and in general." She stiffened. "You went through my phone." "No, your lock screen went through me," I said. "And I'm listening now. You said it yourself. You like being more than a backyard barbecue couple. You want a fun city life. Fine. But you don't get to rewrite our marriage as a roommate situation to make that palatable to your friends." "You're blowing this way out of proportion," she said. "Everyone calls their partner that as a joke sometimes." "I don't," I said, "and I don't want to be with someone who needs to downgrade me to be funny." "You're so sensitive lately," she muttered. "What happened to the laid-back guy I married?" "He started reading the script you're actually handing him," I said. Here's how it works now, Jess. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you. You don't introduce me as your roommate. Not at work, not to your friends, not to anyone. You don't let another man talk about you like you're single. You don't laugh along. That's not negotiable for me." She stared at me incredulous. "Or what?" "Or we change the contract to fit your words," I said quietly. "You want a roommate. I can be a very efficient one. Separate lives, separate finances, separate leases." "You're threatening divorce over a joke," she said, voice rising. "Not threatening," I corrected. "Explaining. Choices have invoices. I'm showing you the bill you're running up." She shook her head, backing away. I can't do this right now. This is my biggest event of the year. Can you please not bring your insecurities to it? I looked at her for a long second. There it was. My feelings about basic respect were insecurities in her script. I'll look sharp and make small talk, I said finally. But I'm done begging you to see me as your husband. That part's on you. She exhaled in relief, misreading my quiet as surrender. Thank you. Just tonight can you be cool? I'm cool, I said, colder than you realize. We went to the gala. The hotel was one of those downtown towers with marble floors that echo when you walk and chandeliers that look like upside-down jellyfish. Valet took my truck, trying not to look surprised that a man in a well-fitted navy suit drives a beat-up F-150. Inside the ballroom, it was all white tablecloths, uplighting in company colors, a stage at one end with a podium and a branded step and repeat for photos. A jazz band played in the corner, trying to be heard over the hum of networking. Jessica lit up as soon as we stepped in. She put on her event face, all big smiles and air kisses, and you made it, in a tone she never uses at home. Come on, she said, hooking her arm through mine. I'll introduce you to the team. We made the rounds. She did the talking. This is my husband, Mike, she'd say, sometimes adding, he keeps all your cars from exploding, when she remembered humor could also be kind. I watched, I listened, I matched temperature. Then we got to her boss. He was a tall guy in his 50s, silver hair, black-framed glasses, a tux that probably cost what I make in a month. The kind of man who says brand is everything and believes it down to the way he salts his food. Jessica, he boomed when he saw her, you look fantastic. This night doesn't happen without you. She laughed that bright, performative laugh. Team effort, she said, touching his arm lightly. Let me introduce you to, She hesitated, just a split second, but enough that I saw the fork in her brain. Does she claim me or does she edit me? This is Mike, she said finally, my roommate. There it was. My stomach went very still. Her boss chuckled politely. Roommate, that's a new one. She shrugged, eyes sliding away. We share a space. He puts up with all my crazy event hours. Couldn't do it without him. He shook my hand. Nice to meet you, Mike, so what do you do? I'm her mechanic, I said. I didn't say husband, I let her words sit there. I matched temperature. Oh, nice, he said, already half looking over my shoulder for someone more useful. We always need good mechanics in this city. Apparently, I'm also her roommate, I added lightly, according to the brand guidelines. Jessica's fingers dug into my arm. He's kidding, she said too quickly. We've just been saying that because with our schedules we barely see each other. It's a joke. Her boss laughed, too loud. Marriage in the modern age, am I right? He drifted away toward a cluster of board members. She turned to me, eyes sharp. What was that? What was what? I asked. I played along, roommate right. Her jaw clenched. Don't do this. Do what? I asked softly. Hold the mirror up. That was the line, Jess. You didn't just not correct Brad in a text. You sold me as a roommate to your boss. That's not a joke. That's a story you're choosing to tell about us. You're being insane, she hissed. Everyone thought it was funny. I didn't, I said, and I'm the one you're supposedly married to. She glanced around, panicked. Can we not do this here, please? I have a speech in 20 minutes. I'm not going to make a scene, I said. Don't worry, performance can go on. She exhaled, shoulders relaxing slightly. Thank you, she said again, misinterpreting calm as compliance. Go talk to your work husband, I said quietly. You've got material now. I walked away before she could respond. I found the bar. Brad was there, of course, with 2 other guys from her team. He gave me a nod, that bro half smile. Hey man, he said, you surviving all this corporate nonsense? Free booze is free booze, I said. Truer words, he laughed. "Jess looks incredible tonight, huh? You're a lucky dude." "She does," I said, "and luck's a funny word." He frowned briefly, then shrugged it off. "We're dragging her to the after-party later. You coming?" "We'll see," I said. "She hasn't told me the script yet." He laughed again, assuming we were on the same side. I took my drink and drifted toward the edge of the room. From there, I watched. I watched her work the tables. I watched her tilt her head just so when someone important talked. I watched her and Brad share little looks like they had their own private channel in a crowded Wi-Fi network. At one point, I saw her with a small group near the stage, Brad, another woman from her team, and a guy I recognized from LinkedIn photos she'd shown me. They were laughing. Hard. I wasn't close enough to hear, not yet. They moved toward the bar, still in animated conversation. I set my glass down and casually repositioned near a decorative pillar. "This whole party is your fault," Brad was saying. "We never would have pulled it off without you." "Tell my boss that," Jessica laughed. "He thinks this is just my little hobby." "Come on," the other woman said. "You know he loves you. You're like his work wife." Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically. "Great, another husband I don't have time for." "What about your real one?" the other woman asked. "Where is he?" Jessica shrugged, lifting her champagne. "Oh, Mike, he's practically my roommate at this point, boring as hell. I swear, half the time I forget he's even there." They laughed. Not just a little titter, a full head thrown back shared laugh. Brad smirked. "Hey, if he's that boring, I'm just saying my lease is up in March." "That's your opening line," the other woman teased. "It's enough for a roommate," Jessica shot back. More laughter. My ears rang. You ever have a moment where your body wants to do one thing, yell, throw a drink, flip a table, but your brain steps in and hits a different switch? That happened. Something very simple clicked. I wasn't angry. Anger is hot and loud. What I felt was cold, final. Like when you realize a part is cracked clean through and no amount of welding will bring it back to spec. That was the line. She didn't accidentally say it in a text. She didn't stumble over the word in front of her boss. She willingly offered the story of me as a boring roommate to a group of people who think themselves above me and laughed along with their amusement. "Okay." Message received. I finished the rest of my drink. I set the glass down. I checked my watch. 9:18 p.m. She was swept toward the stage by someone with a headset, script in hand for her speech. I didn't go to the stage. I didn't wait for dessert. I didn't tap her on the shoulder for one last, desperate, "Do you hear yourself?" I walked to the coat check, gave them my ticket, slipped on my jacket, and stepped out into the cold December air. It smelled better out there. Real. Exhaust and snow and the faint dusty odor of old brick. I texted her one line. "Heading home, not feeling it. Good luck with the speech." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "Seriously, stay. We'll talk later." I had already started the truck. On the drive home, the quiet in the cab was thick. No radio. Just the low hum of the engine and my own thoughts lining up like items on a checklist. This is what I mean when I say I'm practical. Once the line was crossed, I didn't need to rehearse the argument anymore. I'd already had it a dozen times in my head. She'd already told me who she wanted to be and how she framed me to fit that story. My job now was logistics. It was 9:42 when I pulled into our parking garage. The lobby smelled like fir wreaths and scented candles, holiday staging for people whose lives are supposed to look good on Instagram. In the elevator, I looked at myself in the mirror. Tie still neat. Hair actually decent thanks to the barber she forced me to see. I looked like the sort of man those people at the party would approve of. That amused me. Inside the apartment, the lights were off except for the small glow of the Christmas tree in the corner. We argued about that tree. I wanted real. She wanted fake. We compromised on expensive fake. I stood in the doorway for a second, listening to the quiet. Here's the thing about being treated like a roommate. It makes it very easy to act like one when it's time. I went straight to the bedroom. Our closet was already divided in practice. Her side, color-coded dresses, heels in boxes, designer handbags on a top shelf like trophies. My side, jeans, work pants, t-shirts with shop logos, the few decent shirts I owned. I pulled out my duffel bags, the blue one and the gray one. I laid them open on the bed, not angry, not tossing, neat stacks. Work clothes first, pants, shirts, socks, underwear, my shaving kit, the watch my dad gave me when I graduated tech school. I moved with the calm you get when you finally stop debating yourself. In the dresser, I emptied only my drawers. I didn't touch her stuff. That was another line. I wasn't going to be the guy flinging her lingerie into a suitcase in rage. That's TV. This was accounting. In the bathroom, I grabbed my toothbrush, my razor, the shampoo I liked. I left her rows of serums and creams untouched. By 10:05, my personal life was condensed into 2 duffels and a small box of sentimental things, photos, a fishing lure my uncle had given me, the pocket knife my grandfather carried. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. Lease first. The apartment was technically in both our names now, but only because I'd sponsored it. My income, my credit score. We de-added her to the last renewal because it feels more equal. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Our landlord used an online portal. I logged in, clicked through to our lease. Term, month-to-month auto-renewal. Perfect. There was a button to give notice. Move-out notification, 30 days. I filled it out. Move-out date, January 31. Reason, relocating. In the comment box I wrote, Jessica last name would like to remain in the unit and assume sole responsibility. Please contact her at her email to discuss a new lease in her name only. Send. I took a screenshot for my records. Old mechanics are paranoid about documentation. We keep receipts. Next, finances. We had a joint checking account for bills. I also had my own separate account for my side work and savings. I'd set that up about 6 months earlier when the first "you're being dramatic" argument happened. Not to hide anything, to protect. Money from my paycheck went into both accounts. Her contribution landed in the joint and mostly left as quick as it came. Rent, utilities, her car payment, the never-ending subscription parade. I logged into the bank and adjusted the direct deposit. As of the next payday, my check would go to my personal account only. I set up an automatic transfer to cover my half of December's bills and the January rent share. After that, it was on her and whatever new lease arrangement she could work out. I wasn't going to screw her financially overnight. I was just expiring the roommate lease she liked to talk about. Giving her the single girl life she joked about with the invoices attached. I printed out a simple note, old school, pen on paper. Jess, roommate lease expired. I've given our landlord my 30 days notice and asked them to contact you about taking over the apartment in your name if you want it. December and January rent are covered on my end. After that, it's yours or not, your call. I've moved my things to the cabin. Logistics only from this point on. You can email about practical stuff. I won't be engaging in arguments about feelings or narratives. You wanted to live more like a single person. I believe you. Mike. I read it twice. It said exactly what I meant, no more, no less. I left it on the kitchen table, right where she dropped her purse when she walked in. My phone buzzed on the counter. Destroying the speech as usual. You left at the worst time, her text read. I didn't answer. I powered the phone completely off. The silence was immediate and thick. I grabbed my duffels, the box, my keys, and walked out. It was 10, 32 when I pulled the apartment door shut behind me. It made a soft, expensive-sounding click. Fancy buildings take pride in that noise. In the elevator, I exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel broken. I felt aligned. Like when you finally track down the source of a rattling noise in a car and tighten the last bolt. The drive to the cabin took an hour and 20 with light traffic. Highway, then darker, two-lane roads, then finally the familiar turnoff where the streetlights disappeared and the stars picked up the slack. The cabin sat at the end of a gravel drive, half sunk into the trees. Two-bedroom, small porch, an old fishing boat leaned up against the side. I'd been there enough times that even in the dark my body knew the steps. I unlocked the door, flipped on the light. The place smelled like wood, dust, and the faint lingering scent of the last bonfire we'd had months ago. Furniture was basic: an old couch, a coffee table scarred with rings, a kitchen table that had seen more poker than meals. I dropped the duffels in the bedroom that had always been mine when friends came up. I set the box on the dresser. I stood there for a second, looking at my face in the small, slightly warped mirror. "Welcome home," I said to no one. I didn't unpack much that night. I found clean sheets in the closet, made the bed, took a quick shower in the tiny bathroom with water pressure that felt like a science experiment, and lay down. My phone stayed off on the nightstand. Red light from the old digital alarm clock glowed 12:07. I slept. Not perfectly. I woke up a few times, my brain replaying snippets of the party, Jessica's laugh, Brad's smirk, the word roommate hanging in the air. But every time I reminded myself, decisions made, actions taken. Debating it at 2 a.m. changes nothing. By 6, the winter light was just starting to seep around the edges of the blinds. I got up, made coffee in the old drip machine my uncle left. No fancy oat milk, just black, and stepped out onto the porch. The lake was a flat sheet of gray beyond the trees, quiet in that deep, almost church basement way. My phone, when I finally turned it on at 7:12, nearly vibrated itself off the railing. 15 missed calls from Jessica. 7 voicemails. 20+ texts. The first one started innocent. "Where did you go?" "Babe, answer." "Are you okay?" Then, as time passed, "Seriously, this isn't funny. I'm trying to host. Can you stop making this about you?" "Did you really just ghost my biggest event of the year?" Then later, closer to midnight, "Came home, where are you? Why are your bags gone? What the hell is this note? Call me now." The last one at 1:43 a.m. "If this is about that stupid joke, you're insane. You can't just leave like this." I let the screen go dark. I didn't listen to the voicemails. Not yet. I didn't need to hear the audio version of those messages. You learn to recognize engine sounds from one click. Same with people. Instead, I texted one line. "I'm at the cabin. You got the note. We'll handle logistics by email." 3 dots appeared almost instantly. "Are you serious? Over a joke?" "Over a pattern," I replied. "You're punishing me. This is so cruel." "Wrong word," I typed. "I'm protecting myself. Choices have invoices. This is me paying mine and handing you yours." "No, we talk about things. We don't just blow up our life because you got your feelings hurt at a party. Come back and we'll discuss it like adults." "We've discussed it," I wrote. "You laughed. This is the part where I stop performing husband while you perform single." There was a longer pause. Then, "You're not thinking clearly. You're clearly having some sort of midlife crisis. You can't afford to move out. We can't afford to live separately right now. Be serious." I actually laughed at that, sitting on the porch with my coffee. "I already gave notice," I said. "Landlord will reach out. December and January are covered on my end. After that, you'll need a new lease in your name or a new place. You've been telling people you're basically single. Time to try it on outside a punchline. You're an asshole, she fired back. You're throwing away 4 years because you're insecure about my job. No, I wrote. I'm ending a marriage where my wife introduces me as her roommate and calls me boring as hell to a guy who wants to replace me. Not the same thing. She didn't answer right away. I imagined her pacing the apartment, phone in hand, the note on the table like radioactive waste. After 10 minutes, another text popped up. Please don't do this, I was drunk. You know I don't mean that, I say stupid stuff. You say stupid stuff. We move on. We've always moved on. I moved on, I wrote, just not in the direction you expected. Can we at least see each other and talk? She asked. You owe me that. I don't owe you more chances to minimize me to my face, I replied. If you want to talk logistics, divorce, splitting stuff, you can email. I'll have a lawyer draw up papers. You're not even willing to try therapy, she asked. One fight and you're done. This wasn't one fight, I said. This was a 3-month tour of your new story. Late-night flirting you called harmless, coworkers who know more about our dynamic than my friends do, jokes about being single, and finally the headliner at your big event. I'm your boring roommate. I heard you clearly. I believe you. I'm acting accordingly. I set the phone down. Silence from her side. After an hour, she texted again, a different note creeping in. I can't afford that apartment on my own, she said. Even with a raise, rent is insane right now. You're really okay with me being out on the street? There are many streets that end at single girl downtown with roommates, I wrote back. You talk about them like they're paradise. You'll be fine, and I gave you 2 months. That's more than most landlords do. You're cruel, she repeated. I'm clear, I replied. There's a difference. That was the morning I stopped defending myself. Later that day, I called a lawyer. I found one through Ray's cousin who'd gone through a divorce the year before. The guy specialized in family law, mid-range price, blunt on the phone. Any kids? He asked. No. Joint property, house, investments. Just the apartment lease and a joint checking account. That's easy, he said. Ohio's pretty straightforward. We'll file, divide the account down the middle and be done. If she wants to fight over furniture, that's her problem. I don't want anything except what I already took with me, I said. Let her keep the couch. I just don't want joint anything anymore. Clean break, he nodded. I like that. I'll email you some forms. Logistics only, I said. He chuckled. You'd be surprised how few people manage that. The next weeks were a mix of quiet and noise. Quiet at the cabin, waking up, making coffee, driving into town to work, driving back up to the lake at night. The radio felt different. Songs I used to half listen to suddenly made more sense. Noise from the city, texts, emails, second-hand reports. Jessica tried a few tactics. Anger first. Long paragraphs about how immature I was, how everyone thought I'd embarrassed her by leaving the event, how my blue-collar pride was toxic. I read some, skimmed most, and answered almost none. When I did answer, it was surgical. We can meet at the apartment on Saturday between 10 and 12, so you can show me what you want me to sign over. Or, lawyer says this is the basic separation agreement. You can have yours review it. Never I'm sorry or here's why you're wrong about me. That phase was over. Then came tears. She sent a photo once. Her on the couch, eyes red, mascara smeared. Is this what you wanted? The text under it said. I didn't respond. I didn't ask for her to perform misery. I asked for respect months ago. She hadn't delivered. Her tears now were a late payment on a closed account. Then bargaining. I'll block Brad, she wrote one night. I'll change jobs. I'll do whatever you want. Just come back and we'll start fresh. I don't want to throw away what we have. What we had was you wanting 2 lives, I wrote back. You can change jobs, but if the script in your head about me doesn't change, we end up here again in 6 months. I'm not resigning for that run." "You're scared," she said. I was, I admitted. Scared of being alone, scared of starting over at 34, scared of being the bad guy in your version of the story. Not anymore. She liked that last sentence. It gave her something to grab. "So you admit you're okay with people thinking you're the villain?" she asked. "I'm okay with people believing what you tell them," I said. "They believe you when you call me your roommate. They can believe you now when you call me cruel. Same pattern. I'm not in charge of your audience." There was a day, about 2 weeks after I left, when we met at the apartment like business partners. I took a Saturday off. I drove down. I brought Ray with me, not because I expected a scene, but because witnesses change how people perform. When I walked in, the place already looked different. My boots weren't by the door. My jacket hook was empty. Her stuff had spread into the space where mine used to be like ivy. She was in leggings and an oversized sweater, hair in a messy bun that probably took 20 minutes. No makeup, or the kind that looks like no makeup. She looked younger, or maybe just smaller without the armor of events. She looked at Ray, then at me. "You brought a chaperone." "I brought a friend to help carry things if needed," I said. "And because it's good to have neutral eyes on logistics." She snorted. "Everything's logistics with you now." "That's the only lane I'm staying in," I said. We went through the motions. Kitchen, living room, bedroom. "Do you want the TV?" she asked. "No, you picked it, keep it." "The couch?" "Yours." She frowned. "You're just leaving me everything." "Stuff isn't the point," I said. "We're dividing the account 50-50 per the agreement. The deposit will likely go to your new lease. I took my clothes and tools. That's all I care about." "You could at least take half the furniture so I don't have to sit here surrounded by ghosts," she muttered. "You can sell it," I said. "Buy new or move, that's your call now." In the bedroom, she paused by the empty space where my duffel had been. "This is so stupid," she said, voice finally cracking. "We had a life." "We had a script," I said, "and you rewrote my role without asking." She turned to me, eyes wet. "I was kidding. You really can't tell the difference between a joke and reality." "Jokes have truth inside them," I said. "You don't build a whole bit about your boring roommate husband if there's not a piece of you that believes it. And even if there isn't, this is important. Other people believed it. You let them. You let a man who clearly wanted my spot watch you downgrade me." "Brad means nothing," she said. "He's just noise." "Noise can still drown out respect," I said. "Look, Jess, I'm not saying you're evil. I'm saying you're not my person. My person doesn't need to shrink me to shine. My person doesn't talk about me like dead weight to impress a room. You want to be the single girl with the cool job and no boring obligations. You're allowed. Go live it fully, without me as a prop." She stared at me for a long time. The fight went out of her shoulders a little. "You really won't come back," she whispered. "I'm not your property," I said softly. "I'm not going to hold on to what clearly doesn't want to stay. I match temperature." "You're cold," she said, tears falling. "I'm efficient," I replied. "Quiet isn't weak, it's just cheaper on the soul." Ray shifted his weight in the doorway, uncomfortable. "Want me to start loading the toolbox?" he asked, breaking the tension. "Yeah," I said, grateful. "It's in the closet by the balcony." The rest of the visit was business. We signed some preliminary paperwork from the lawyer. She asked a few practical questions about the bank app. I answered. No small talk, no "how are you sleeping?" No hugging for old time's sake. When I left, she stood in the doorway watching me, and Ray carry the heavy box to the truck. "This is really happening," she said, almost to herself. "It's been happening for months," I said. "This is just the part where the outside matches the inside." Back at the cabin, life simplified. Weekdays I drove down to the shop, worked my shifts, took some side jobs in the evenings when I felt like it. Weekends, I fixed things around the cabin I'd been putting off for years. New screen door, cleaned the gutters, finally replaced the janky light fixture in the bathroom. I slept better than I thought I would. Not perfect, but enough. No phone lighting up at midnight with Slack pings that weren't mine. No tension in the bed about whose back was turned to whom. Ray came up one Saturday with a six-pack and some steaks. "You look lighter," he said when we were standing by the grill, smoke in our faces. "Divorce diet," I said dryly. "Lose 130 pounds of contempt overnight." He snorted. "Jenna says Jessica's been melting down on Instagram." "Oh." Vague posts about sometimes the person who's supposed to be your rock crumbles, and people show their true colors when you're shining. That kind of thing. "That tracks," I said. "She always did like a good narrative." "You don't care?" he asked. "I care in the sense that I don't like being misrepresented," I said. "But her audience is her problem now. I know what happened. You know most of it. My lawyer knows the rest. That's enough witnesses for me." He nodded slowly. "Proud of you, man. A lot of guys would have stayed and kept arguing for another 5 years." "I almost did," I admitted. "It took her calling me boring as hell to my face by proxy to clear the fog." "Do you miss her?" he asked. I thought about that. "I miss the version of her that liked my grease-stained hands," I said. "I miss having someone to split takeout with on the couch. I don't miss wondering who she's performing for tonight." We ate on the porch. The lake reflected the orange smear of sunset. It was quiet except for the occasional car on the distant road and a bird making its last noise of the day. "This," Ray said, gesturing around, "isn't a bad consolation prize." "Yeah," I said. "Habits are harder than divorce lawyers, but once you get past the first week, it's not so bad." By the time the paperwork went through, about 4 months later, it felt almost anticlimactic. My lawyer called. "Judge signed off," he said. "You're officially divorced. No contested assets, no alimony, clean file. Easiest case I've had all year." "Glad I could make your job simple," I said. "Most people don't leave until there's nothing left but scorched earth," he said. "You left when there was still a couch to sit on. That's smart." "Fire's expensive," I replied. "I prefer turning off the gas." Jessica didn't mark the occasion with any big gesture. She'd already shifted her energy elsewhere. I heard through the grapevine, by which I mean Jenna, who would dramatically say, "I'm not gossiping, I'm updating before every download," that Brad had gotten promoted. Different city, Chicago. "He left right after the whole thing with you," Jenna said over coffee one Sunday when she and Ray drove up. "It was awkward. People at her office said they'd been close, and then suddenly he's gone." "Corporate ladder," I said. "She always did like to be attached to someone moving up." "Do you think Jenna trailed off." "Doesn't matter," I said. "Emotional affair or not, the disrespect happened either way. I didn't wait for the physical cheat. I left when the story she told about me made cheating feel like a side detail." "Do you ever talk to her?" Jenna asked. "Only by email," I said, "and only when something official needs a signature. Last one was about the tax filing. After that, there's no reason." Jenna nodded slowly. "You're really done." I was done the moment I heard "boring as hell roommate" come out of her mouth with that laugh, I said. "Paperwork just caught up." 6 months out, my life looks different in ways that are small on paper and huge in practice. I still fix cars. I still come home tired with oil on my hands. Only now, when I wash them in the cabin sink, nobody makes faces about the mess in the drain. The only towels here are ones I picked. They don't match. I don't care. I keep my keys on a nail by the door. I make coffee the way I like it and drink it out of a chipped mug that has my uncle's old fishing logo on it. If I leave the cup in the sink overnight, it's a negotiation with my own laziness, not someone else's standards. Some mornings I drive into town early and hit the small gym. Nothing fancy. Free weights, A treadmill that squeaks, old guys grunting. I'm stronger than I was. Partly from lifting, partly from carrying my own life without deadweight critique. On weekends, I fix up old cars in the pole barn I added next to the cabin. Word got out. Like people always have projects, boats, ATVs, trucks that only see daylight in summer. They pay in cash and beer. Sometimes both. Social media tells me bits about Jessica, whether I want them or not. We're not connected anymore. I blocked her and Brad months ago, but the internet is leaky. Friends share things. Algorithms surface mutual memories. I see a picture once her at some rooftop bar with a group of women, cocktail in hand, city lights behind her. The caption says, "Married to the grind, now briefcase sparkles." That's her right. She always wanted to be married to something other than a man who owns a torque wrench. I don't wish her ill. I also don't wish her back. People ask sometimes, when they hear the short version of the story, "When did you know it was really over?" They expect me to say the texts, or the hand on the back, or when she refused therapy. Those were all warning lights. But the moment I knew, deep down, in that place right behind your sternum where you store non-negotiables, was standing in that hotel ballroom, hearing my wife laugh as she told a group of people I was boring as hell and basically her roommate. The laugh did it more than the words. Because she wasn't nervous. She wasn't drunk enough to blame it on the booze. She was comfortable, practiced. That line came too easy. It had been said before, probably a dozen times in smaller rooms. She just finally said it loud enough for me to hear. If you're listening to this and feel that same knot in your stomach when your partner jokes about you, I'm not here to tell you to pack a bag tonight. I'm not a therapist. I'm a guy who knows what it feels like to be gradually edited down to a background character in your own life. What I will say is this, listen carefully. Not to the apologies after, not to the "you're being dramatic" or "you're insecure" speeches. Listen to the jokes, the throwaway lines at parties, the just between us comments they make to people whose approval they crave. That's where the real script hides. You're allowed to decide you don't want that role. You're allowed to walk out of the theater quietly, without smashing the stage, and go build your own small, peaceful show somewhere else. Mine happens to be at a lake, with a cabin that needs new siding and a garage that always smells like oil and hopeful projects. It's not glamorous. There are no ballrooms. No CEOs in tuxedos know my name. But the only person who tells the story of who I am here is me. And in my story, I'm not a roommate. I'm the guy who finally realized that peace isn't dramatic. It's just the absence of stupid. I paid for that realization up front. It was worth every cent.